Preseason game number 1 is in the books, and the Saints rookie center and veteran quarterback looked very good inside the dome Friday. Plus, the punt return battle is now heating up. A no-call flashback against the Vikings, and LSU completes its first fall scrimmage without its starting quarterback. It would appear the biggest battle of Saints training camp is not really a battle at all. I'm Doug Mouton. Welcome to 4th Down on 4. Eric McCoy has been the Saints starting center since he arrived, and he was the starter in the preseason opener. It certainly appears the first question of training camp has been answered, we think. Ricardo LeCompte reports from the Saints Sunday practice in Metairie.
Sunday, the day the Saints hit the wall in training camp. Veterans and rookies alike fighting through the grind seen every summer.
Guys may be banged up, maybe sore, maybe whatever, but at the end of the day, if you find one area to get improved upon, whether it's the mental aspect of the game or the physical, then we're headed in the right direction.
And today's practice session stressed both the physical and mental.
Today, another thing was, it was all silent snap count, no cadence today. So that creates a little undue stress, but we're going to be on the road in Seattle. We're going to be on the road in some of these venues where you've got to work on that, and you just can't wait for the week of the game to work on it. So hopefully, that's something we can continue to improve on.
Rookie center Eric McCoy paying the closest attention. In these loud venues, it will be his job to get the ball to Drew Brees at the right time, every time. Add to that the work he's already putting in, building the quarterback-center exchange relationship.
Yeah, it's definitely just getting used to his cadence. His kid's quick cadence is a little bit slower than everybody else's, just because he likes to do a bigger pause to see things a little bit more. McCoy
appears to be the best candidate to snap it to number 9. He's taken the majority of the first-team snaps in the first 2+ weeks of camp, and it continued in preseason game number 1.
They're getting off the ball. He's firing off the ball.
McCoy drew the start at center in Friday's preseason game against the Vikings and logged 28 total snaps at the position. Now, McCoy admits he's got a long way to go to replace the retired Max Unger. It's all about him finding his identity on that O-line.
I'm definitely my own guy, but I also like to know how he did things. I mean, Max was an all-pro center. He's a guy that you definitely want to model your game after. So I, as the coaches, anything pretty much that I can do that reflects what he did, I want to know.
Unger provided leadership on a veteran line. McCoy wants to get to that point one day.
I mean, it's still been a little bit of a vocal leader just because I'm the center and I have to get everybody in and out of the huddle. So, I mean, they still listen to me, but of course they're handling the show and I'm just pitching in when I can.
The Saints will need McCoy to help keep the O-line as one of the top units in the NFL. In Metairie, Ricardo LeCompte, 4th Down on 4.
All right, thanks, Ricardo. Yeah, McCoy is the short-term project, the guy the Saints need now. Obviously, the Saints are pretty set at quarterback. But one of the questions that does need to be answered long-term is, can Teddy Bridgewater be your quarterback of the future? No definitive answer is going to come from one preseason game. But if you watched him Friday night, the answer is maybe. Teddy Bridgewater quarterbacked the Saints for 4 drives. Over the first 3, he led the Saints to 2 field goals and a punt. But on drive number 4, he came alive. With 1:44 to go in the half, he opened it with a 32-yard shot to LSU's Cyril Grayson.
I said in my mind, hey, I got my guy out there. I like my guys over their guys, and just want to give them a chance, and did just that.
A roughing the passer penalty on that play and 2 short passes quickly had the Saints at the Vikings' 18. Bridgewater then found tight end Dan Arnold in an open spot in the Vikings zone. 6 plays, 79 yards in 1:02, and the Saints had a touchdown before halftime.
I felt like he was comfortable, and he got the ball to the right guy, pretty quickly. And there's a command, when he was in there, and I think he and Taysom this training camp, I've noticed a pretty significant difference in how they're performing.
For me, my main goal was just to create tempo, create rhythm, and try to establish an identity.
And I think we did a good job of doing it.
Establish an identity. It's what Bridgewater is now trying to do here. He was the Vikings' first-round pick in 2014, started 12 games as a rookie. In his second season, he made the Pro Bowl. But in August of 2016, he suffered a knee injury in practice so serious he, in effect, missed 2 full seasons, and the Vikings moved on. After a brilliant preseason last year with the Jets, Sean Payton traded for him and has raved about him since, enough to re-sign him this offseason to the highest contract of any backup quarterback in the NFL. Now, obviously, the Saints don't do that if they don't think Bridgewater might be their future. And for Bridgewater, the benefit of being here is obvious.
When you watch a guy like Drew show up every day and he's the ultimate competitor, here we are in training camp and coach might tell Drew, hey, we're thinking about giving you an off day tomorrow, and Drew's, pissed about it, because he wants to get better every day at everything. And to have a guy like that you can learn under and idolize is very beneficial for me in my career.
His numbers Friday night were good, a 110 passer rating that was helped by 0 interceptions. Preseason step 1 in establishing his identity was a success.
I think last year and earlier this spring, I found myself trying to do exactly what Drew does. And I had to, take a step back and just tell myself, hey, I'm not Drew, but Drew is the standard. So, with that mindset, it's like, hey, you're chasing perfection, you're chasing excellence, but at the same time, you have to remember that, you're yourself, you have to be yourself. And when I'm in there, I try to do things in a way that Drew would do them, but, I try to put my own little spin on it.
Preseason step 2 comes Sunday in Los Angeles. Now, that Vikings game also highlighted a position battle that we didn't know existed, returning kicks. Number 11, undrafted rookie Deontay Harris said loudly with his performance in the Superdome, he's a contender, as Andrew Doak reports.
And this is Deontay Harris's world right now.
Deontay Harris played at Assumption College in a small town just an hour west of Boston. The most fans he can ever recall playing in front of is in the neighborhood of 3,000. So walking under the lights at the Superdome on Friday night was a far cry from anything he had ever experienced before.
It's just a real feeling. Never been in an environment like that, so it's definitely nerve-wracking, but once you get the first one under your belt, it's just second nature.
Harris may be listed as a wide receiver on the Saints depth chart, but he's not here to help New Orleans offense. He's here to set them up. Standing at 5'6" and 170 pounds, a player like Harris has to find a niche, and it was discovered his junior year of college. As a part of the Greyhounds, Harris finished his career the NCAA's all-division leader with 14 combined touchdowns, both on kick and punt return.
Into the end zone!
I hated the thought of playing kick return and punt return until my junior year of college, but I guess, like I said, in the junior year, I just realized I could do something with this.
And this weekend at the Dome, he flashed how he could be an immediate help in the Saints' return game. Harris ran back 3 kick returns for 90 yards, including 1 scoot that picked up 34. But on punt return, he may have just created himself a competition.
The Saints finished last season 27th in the league in punt return yards. They didn't have a return longer than 17 yards. And even though it was wiped out by a penalty, the first time that Harris touched the ball, he went for 23. When Sean Payton was asked after the game what he liked about Harris that night, his answer was pretty simple.
He gained yards. What'd you like?
And sometimes it really is as uncomplicated as that. But on a night where Marcus Sherrills did not play, the man the Saints signed in free agency away from the Vikings to be their punt returner, Harris decided to throw his hat in the ring. From the Superdome, Andrew Doak, Eyewitness Sports.
Coming up, one play Friday night had Sean Payton and just about everyone watching flashing back to the no-call incident. We'll have Payton's reaction to that play after the break. Plus, Rod Walker from the Times-Picayune New Orleans Advocate joins us to break down Teddy Bridgewater's performance and a lot more. And we'll go one-on-one with former Rummel Raider and LSU sprinter Cyril Grayson. And later, what Ed Ogeron took away from the Tigers' first scrimmage. An interesting moment came in the third quarter of the preseason opener. Sean Payton got a chance to enact a rule he helped create. Andrew Doak reports.
Friday night at the Superdome, it happened. Sean Payton challenged the call of defensive pass interference, a rule that he played a giant part in implementing this offseason.
I think the one thing that was different tonight is getting used to, hey, we can challenge that.
The play in question came in the third quarter when Saints corner Kayvon Webster was battling with Vikings receiver Laquan Treadwell for a deep ball down the sideline. Both parties were hand-checking before Webster swatted the ball away, but that's also when Laundrie hit the field, as the refs threw a flag against Webster for defensive pass interference.
I guess it was probably the hand fighting, I guess. He wrapped my arm, they thought I wrapped his. It was just good competes to me.
Now this is a challengeable play.
The Saints went on to lose the challenge, but this was an opportunity for Payton to experiment in a live game with the rule that he helped champion. But in a regular season game, Payton has already said he believes the new rule will force coaches to think twice before gambling. Coaches are still given 2 challenges a game this season to use at any point. That remains the same. But the worst case scenario would be to burn both of your challenges early on minor plays and not have one available for a no call like the Saints experienced last year.
Well, listen, in a regular season game, depending on where you're at in the game, you know, probably in the first half, I mean, you have to have a strong conviction, you know, and so it's a lot easier to throw one of those flags, you know, preseason week 1.
The worry that some opponents have of this new rule is that replay can distort what you or even a referee saw in real time. The reality is when you slow down video, it can wildly exaggerate the grabbing and fighting between a defender and a receiver, which is why Sean Payton still believes unless it's flagrant, the refs will stick with the call on the field.
Being on the committee, I just know the approach the league's going to take when they're reviewing. They're going to be pretty conservative. They're going to have to see something substantial, and we'll get used to it.
As will the rest of the NFL. From the Superdome, Andrew Doak, 4th Down on 4.
All right, thanks, Andrew. Joined by Rod Walker, the columnist from the Times-Picayune, the New Orleans Advocate. All right, first thing, Teddy Bridgewater. What was your take on Teddy's first real chance with the Saints?
I thought he played extremely well. You know, you look back at the game he played against Carolina last year, and it was a game that the Saints didn't really need to win. And, you know, he was okay in that game, but I thought this game he really came out sharp. He completed like his first 11 passes. Well, you had 2 drops that should have been caught, and he just played really well. And I thought he really commanded the huddle. Just talking to some of the players after the game, they talked about how well he commanded the huddle and just how he was in charge. And you can just tell that he's starting to find himself after coming through this. This is his first offseason with this team.
And look, his numbers were good, not great. The Saints, 4 drives, 1 touchdown, 2 field goals, which isn't great. But I also agree with you that I thought he was terrific. And Sean Payton did say about that Carolina game that they had 2 brand new tackles. And he thought it was almost a little unfair of Bridgewater to play him in that game. But one of the things I find most interesting about Bridgewater is that every time you ask Sean Payton about him, Sean Payton almost goes out of his way to say really nice things about this guy. Made him the highest paid backup in the NFL, which you don't do without a reason. Sean Payton in particular seems really high on Teddy Bridgewater. Agreed?
Yeah, I agree. And I think the thing about that is I think whenever Drew Brees decides to shut it down, I think Teddy's a guy, and I think Sean sort of knows that, and he likes what he's seen in him so far, just the way he's embraced his role as a backup, and I think that's going to bode well for Teddy. Just through this season as a backup, and just going into next season if he becomes a starter or whenever Brees shuts it down.
Yeah, and he said all the right things about Drew Brees. He's 26 years old, so you don't have to start from scratch, but he's not too old to be put in. Look, one of the battles that sort of showed itself in this game that I didn't even realize was a training camp battle was that punt returner. It seems the Saints are determined to improve that, last in the NFL last year. But it now might not even be Marcus Sherrills, the free agent that you went and got. We got a battle, don't we?
Yeah, count me among the ones who thought it was Marcus Sherrills' job, and I just thought that was it. But you look at what Deontay Harris did. He had 3 returns on the kickoff for 90 yards. I mean, he averaged 30 yards a return. And you said, okay, it's a 2-man battle. Then all of a sudden, Cyril Grayson comes out and he returns 2 for 61 yards, I believe it was. And so you got 3 guys who can really, change the field position of this game just on kickoff returns. And that's going to be one of the biggest battles we have, probably the biggest battle, I guess, the rest of the way.
Yeah, it is interesting because it does look like center is Eric McCoy's job. Agreed?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I thought when the Saints moved up in the draft to get him in the second round, I mean, I didn't think that was a pick that you make just to have this guy as a project. I thought they wanted him to come in and start. And if you look at how teams have done over the years as far as just picking centers that high in the draft, they typically pick guys that they expect to come in and play right away.
No question about it. Rod Walker from the Times-Picayune New Orleans Advocate, terrific job as always. Now look, LSU sprinter Cyril Grayson has given himself a chance to stick with a solid training camp, and then he made that terrific 32-yard catch in the 2-minute drive at the end of the first half. He's got a shot. Andrew Doak caught up with Grayson in the locker room after the game.
Joined by former Rummel star Cyril Grayson. Big play of the night to me was, Vince Beagle has that fumble recovery. Next play, Sean Payton dials up 32-yard pass, Teddy Bridgewater to you. And that really kind of carried some momentum to set up the touchdown to Dan Arnold. I want to know, after that fumble recovery, though, did you know that Sean was going to be dialing up a big play to you?
I knew that all go was coming up. I didn't know if I was going to get it, but every play you have to run like you're going to get it in. They had that pressure, and I was kind of thinking back shoulder because I felt them on top of me, but then I kept running and he made a big play. That sparked a good drive.
As you're seeing that ball come towards you, I mean, tell me what you're feeling, because you're not only playing for the Saints and have a good opportunity to make this roster, but you're doing it in front of your friends and family, right?
Right, so I'm just trying to make a play, catch the ball, keep the drive rolling. That's what I'm thinking in the moment, Afterwards, probably when I get home, I'll think about it a little bit more and be really excited about that part. But, I mean, I'm just glad I was able to help the team in that moment.
How many friends and family did you have attending this game tonight? I mean, did you have any time to be able to say hi to them before the game, or were you kind of, I just want to be focused on the game, let's talk after?
So during the day, I stopped at home. I knew my mom, my dad, my sisters and brothers were going to come. Well, my sisters were going to come. I don't have any brothers. So my cousins were there. My aunt was there. I saw her in the stands. I heard her yelling before the game. So that was awesome, knowing that they were there and supporting me. So it was cool.
I know you've been through a couple different training camps before, but how much different does this training camp experience, how much better you've become as a football player and being recognized as a football player, how much different does this feel for you here in New Orleans?
Yeah, it feels a bunch different. I feel like I know what they're talking about when they're coaching me up. I'm learning how to manipulate defensive backs, so I feel a lot comfortable as a receiver than I have before. I feel like I was just going out there running sometimes, but now I feel like a football player. I feel like I have a shot.
We've been having fun watching you, man. Thanks for joining us, Cyril. Appreciate it. We'll send it back to you.
Still ahead, we'll go to Baton Rouge, where starting quarterback Joe Burrow missed the team's first scrimmage of the fall with a minor camp injury. But the defense stepped up in a big way. That story when we come back. Ed Orgeron doesn't like to call them scrimmages. He calls them preseason games. Coach O has 3 scheduled for 3 consecutive Saturdays. Number 1 was this weekend. Now, cameras are not allowed inside, so we have to rely on Coach O to tell us what happened. In what can only be seen as a positive, Orgeron said his defensive line was dominant. 2 guys he singled out inside. Number 91, senior Braden Fajoko, who's coming back after missing the end of last season with a torn bicep. If he's full strength, that's a really good thing. And he praised number 72, sophomore Tyler Shelvin, who's battled weight and grade issues, but has enormous potential. And he hasn't missed an opportunity this summer to say good things about Michael Divinity, the former John Ehret Patriot, who's now moving from outside linebacker to middle linebacker.
I don't think we have a Devin White yet, but I think that Michael Divinity has stepped up today. He's a leader, had a lot of big plays up there. I think he's having an excellent year.
Joe Burrow did not play Saturday. He watched with what Ogeron describes as a minor camp injury. Coach O said they expect Burrow back soon. The Tigers are back to work Monday. They practice Monday to Thursday. Then preseason game number 2 is next Saturday. We're back with more 4th Down on 4 in a minute. It's a fun week for the Saints. They head to California for a couple practices and a preseason game against the Los Angeles Chargers. We'll be in L.A. Reports begin Wednesday night at 10. Then the game Sunday is here on Channel 4. It's a CBS national game at 3 p.m. New Orleans time. We'll have an eye on the black and gold pregame special Sunday at 2, live from L.A. And then we'll wrap it all up next Sunday night on 4th Down on 4. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next Sunday from California.